10:01, let's rock and roll. Welcome to the Hammerdown Roadshow, where we're going to put the pedal to the metal and the hammer down and talk trends, tech, and tunes. My name is Jay Mervis, Healthcare Sales Director here at Fortinet. Welcome to the sixth installment of our podcast series. I'm here with Robert Short, Vice President of Strategic Services at Liquid Networx, one of our strongest partners here at Fortinet. The trend today is resource constraints. Robert, tell us a little bit about yourself and your background in Liquid Networx as a firm.
Sure. Jay, Robert Short, Liquid Networx, as you mentioned, been around this business for a very long time. Started on the WAN side, doing the DMARC out, helping customers lift and shift entire technologies and networks all the way back to the frame relay days, all the way into what we used to call IBVPN. Now we call it SD-WAN, and now moving in more into the infrastructure on the LAN side. So Liquid Networx has been around since 2002, doing it strong, and now we're doing it with you guys a lot.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're on the podcast circuit with most of Fortinet. You've had with Peter Newton and some other folks, so you're actually becoming more and more famous every day. Liquid Networx was SD-WAN Partner of the Year a couple times and expanded their portfolio with Fortinet. So awesome stuff. Let's talk about the trend today, Robert. Resource constraints. One of the 5 R's impacting healthcare lately, and they're all interconnected. So whether it's radiology, rural resources, or ransomware, all tying into risk. I wanted to get some real life perspective about resource constraints from you, but we've seen from our independent research at Fortinet, 2.72 million jobs will never be filled. The hackers are automating and using their tools and their money to go and automate even more and make it more complex and compromise customers. And 4 of the 10 largest breaches we've seen in healthcare in the last 12 months have been caused by resource constraints. Robert, what are you and the firm seeing from a trend perspective?
That's a great question, Jay. What we've seen, and of course, we continue to pile on new terminologies, the latest one being zero trust. Didn't have time a lot of organizations didn't have the time, the resources, the people, even sometimes the technology implemented to do what they were doing. And now the new push coming down is zero trust. We're just seeing it get tougher and tougher for these guys and girls in the industry. We're seeing more people move to the cloud, and we're seeing them consolidate. It used to be this layered security approach, right? Where we're going to have this vendor do that. Well, that vendor do this and that vendor. Well, guess what? That is 200 and whatever thousand or 200 million, whatever number you used a minute ago.
2.72 million, yeah.
Thank you. 2.72 million people. Well, if you got to pick different manufacturers to find people for, it just gets more difficult. We're finding people centralize those security solutions, work with companies like Fortinet that have a fabric approach so that they can cross-train multiple individuals on multiple technologies. Because one of the biggest holes in any enterprise is if somebody leaves the firm, right? All of that intellectual knowledge that they take with them. But if you have one security stack or one fabric, as you guys call it, or you have the ability to train multiple people across multiple jobs, so you get the cross trainability when you centralize.
Yeah,
and that's what we're seeing.
That's been key to what we're hearing from our customers, which transitions me to my next point is, we've taken feedback in an informal poll from our customer advisory board, which is our highest performing customers, and we're invested with a ton of activity with them, and they give us direct feedback, good, bad, ugly, and different. And they want to leverage 2 or 3 key partners like yourself and Liquid Networx and 4 or 5 key OEMs that adopted 90% versus the past of best of breed. Let's buy, all of these different things for ABC, like you talk layered security approach and going to the cloud. There's always going to be some level of hybrid component, but how do we get this? And if we need that to offload, which we'll get into in the technology part of this, but if you need to offload, how do you do that when you have 26 different technology solutions to where everybody doesn't do everything in this business? And that's a real thing. The high desire to automate. In my last life, we would try to automate the lowest value tasks. Sometimes that isn't the right thing to do within the security world because you want some visibility. But what your firm does from a managed service perspective, addressing the resource constraints, we've had a ton of success doing that. What are you and the firm seeing from a growth perspective or an activity perspective from the customer base in Fortinet leaning into partnering with Liquid Networx to deliver some of these solutions?
Well, I mean, I'll speak strictly numbers. We've already hit our 2021 annual number and in June, right? And I can't even imagine what that would look like if we weren't dealing with worldwide, restraints on inventories and things like that. I think too, what that has done is it's made people look away from the boxes and look more to the software solutions that give them the ability to still protect their house, and do it in a quick, effective way. Things like EDR, MDR, XDR, NAC, network access control, putting in some things that they don't have to have hardware for. That they can just go and install and work with people like Liquid who are experts at doing this to get it rolled out, protect the maximum amount of attack surfaces the quickest, and have the biggest impact on the enterprise from a security perspective. I think the other thing in all of that is, it has to do with people becoming more hyper focused. And what I mean by that is they realize more so now than ever with all the work from home and the remote and all of that. They realize what the vulnerabilities are more so than ever. So visibility is key, and we bring to bear the tools to help them do that, even if they don't have them in house. So for us, it is looking at where can we make every dollar count the quickest, and with the minimum impact to the enterprise from a resource perspective.
And that resonates with every executive that we've talked to. We've had many joint meetings with our local sales teams, a variety of different folks. But yeah, if we can go and make that maximum dollar impact immediately, that's what you and the firm deliver, which is a perfect transition over to the tech. Let's talk how Fortinet and Liquid Networx work together from a tech perspective and delivering those results. What are some of the different strategies that you've seen? Because every time I feel like I talk to you, Rob, and the firm, you guys have a different offering, and you've done something else advanced with Fortinet, and leveraging that technology and adding people. And like you said, your growth number has been, you've made 2021's number halfway through the year, which is amazing. So happy to hear that. What are you seeing from a technology perspective on, what the go-to-market is and helping customers deal with the resource constraints?
Again, just continue to strengthen and deepen our bench, number one. Everybody asks, where do you find engineers? We don't. We grow them. Literally, we grow them in the dark, in our NOC. And we take people that have ambition and we turn that into competence. And then we deploy that into a live environment where they gain the experience working with some very good senior engineers, and we try to double them up and partner them up. Number one, that's how we have to do that. But I think the other really critical part of this is understanding the threat landscape. And when to your point, we're always adapting and shifting and moving. A year ago, 18 months ago, it was, well, let's focus on the core, right? Let's focus on the gates, even the gates, and I extend that to the perimeter sites, but let's focus on the gates, let's focus on the switches, et cetera. Let's get NAC deployed. Well, then it's like, okay, wow, the attack surface is much, much broader than that. So let's touch every endpoint as quickly as we can. And let's get those knocked out, because, hey, if something gets loose with y'all's EDR, the way it protects around the kernel of the operating system, even if it gets loose, it's going to get shut down. Now we're doubling back on some of those, and we're working to feed that EDR data back to the gates, and then work with FortiAnalyzer and things like those tools like that to report out to a custom SOC as a service offering that we have. We have two, actually. We have one for customers that use FortiGates, 100% pure Fortinet environment. The Fortinet SOC as a service is an amazing, cost-effective way to provide the check boxes, if you will, from an audit perspective, and give you the visibility that you need to do the next right thing. But for customers that are not 100% Fortinet, we can leverage the data and the input from EDR and Analyzer and FortiSIEM and those tools to report out to a SOC as a service that we've built integrations with that enable them to still meet those audit requirements and check those boxes and have the visibility they need, again, to go do the next right thing.
So it's always exciting for me when I talk to you or Andrew, Robert, is when you bring up SOC as a service. It's not a new offering from us, but it's one of the emerging growing offerings, and you guys are way out in front of it. So it's always exciting to me when I talk to you guys or I get on a call with a prospective customer, current customer, sales team, like, hey, how are we going to go talk to this customer? What do you guys do? SOC as a service is front and center. People need someone to manage, monitor 24/7. And with the expertise you guys have from a deployment as a firm, that's unbelievable. This goes back.
Let me add one more thing. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but one more thing, it just popped in my head. I completely forgot about. The other thing that we've really been working with you guys on is incident response. You guys have FortiGuard is arguably the world's best security organization. And y'all have a incident response offering where you will go in arm in arm with the customer and emulate a fire drill or a crisis. The biggest problem that a lot of customers have is they don't know what it's like until it's too late, right? In other words, they're learning on the fly how to recover, how to respond, how to shut down, how to restart, all of those things. They're developing processes real time when an event happens. With the Fortinet incident response offering, we actually go in there and we emulate that. We do tabletop exercises, again, with a world-class, world-leading security organization like FortiGuard, and we get them prepared for if it happens, so that they've got documented processes and procedures. And in addition to that, it's an annual subscription that they can buy that not only teaches them how to recover, but in the event that an event does happen, they have FortiGuard there with them to help them recover. So when an event happens, they can get you guys on the phone and get best practices real time, which are always evolving based on the latest and greatest attack and attack vectors or whatever. So you guys are there with them to help them recover from that. We think it's just a no-brainer. I mean, it's right up there with cyber insurance, right? It's like
every time we talk to you, that's the way you guys present to a customer on how you do business. Is it's a no-brainer, right? And FortiGuard Labs
just do this.
It's the biggest secret of the industry. We're leveraging data from multiple sources and 650,000 customers to correlate all that threat intelligence. And you as a partner, like all of our best partners, talk about FortiGuard Labs and how they leverage that. And like Jim Overbeck, our VP, says, hey, we've got 650,000 customers here at Fortinet and people we haven't talked to. So that's part of the purpose of why we get together, of what you're delivering as a firm and what we do from a product, hardware and software perspective. This goes back to the cybersecurity mesh architecture. That's what Gartner's going to rate here in Q4. And we're going to stack up very well with what the fabric looks like. And what you're talking about, Robert, is that people don't want to have 25 different point solutions, and the resource constraints is exactly what we're dealing with and trying to solve for. Every time we have not talked to one customer that says, hey, I got plenty of people, don't worry about automating all this stuff. And you talk about the if, it's not an if, it's a when something happens, to be prepared for. So that's awesome as a partner that you're developing those sequences with customers and taking them through that journey as a trusted advisor. And that goes back to your background when we're young enough that all the telecom guys back in the day, telecom folks, they were trusted advisors and guided people from spending too much money in that space. So that's awesome that you've carried the DNA and that you're developing your team. So, some of the most successful customers and firms, like one of the best customers I ever had, they started with people on the help desk just so they understand how the organization works. And if they were ambitious, like you're talking about, boom, move them up. Internal recruiting, that's one of the things when customers are like, we can't find people. How do you internally recruit? And we're young enough to remember, you can say, how did you get in IT? And people are like, well, I was the accountant and I knew how to run the network back in the day, token ring. And you're like, wow, I'm really nobody knows what token ring is unless you work for the DoD.
I do.
I know you do, but there's a lot of people on this call that'll be like, wait a minute, you just didn't go on your phone and consume something and have access to your, whatever email. You're like, dude, email is only 15 years on the phone, folks. I mean, a lot of this stuff is cutting edge, but I always love talking to you know,
Oh yeah.
old industry warriors like you, Robert, because you know where the bodies are buried too. Anything else from the tech perspective that you know we could share with some of the audience here on how Fortinet, Liquid Networx, you know, I mean, outside of having Andrew on the call where he just goes through and says, "This is the facts, folks." What else, do you have anything else on the success to help a customer out?
Well, you know, you talked about, yeah, I do actually. You talked about how we are constantly training our team. We're also constantly encouraging customers to get the training, and Fortinet offering the free training, you know, from the
Yeah.
NSC Institute. I mean, it's critical to their success, and frankly, it's critical to their success with Fortinet. So, I would also encourage, you know, any customer, whether they bought a single FortiGate or an AP or they're all in with Fortinet, take advantage of the training that you guys have made free since COVID, basically. Take advantage of that and make, you know, put some sort of incentive program in place for your team, your network security team, your IT team. Get people involved in security, get people learning and taking the courses, get those NSC certifications, you know, at a minimum the NSC 4, but you know, there's product tracks for each one, whether it's FortiMail, FortiMac, FortiVoice, FortiSeam, FortiAnalyzer, FortiManager. And the second thing I would say is once you've bought the tools, leverage the tools. You know, one of the, and I'll just use FortiManager as an example. And look, this is a good and a bad, right? It's a product flaw because if you go and you touch individual FortiGates, it throws them out of sync with FortiManager, and you're basically having to go and redo and resync. So don't do that, right? Use the tool to manage your FortiGates. But feedback to Fortinet is fix that flaw so you don't have to do that. But my point is that for customers, leverage those tools of automation. We have so many customers that buy tools like FortiManager. We use it great when we do everything to roll out, but oh, we got to make a change over here. We got to make a change over there. They just go log directly into the FortiGate because it's so easy. You know, guilty, right? Our team is guilty. We've done it. It's so easy just to go, you know, to the cloud, pop into the gate, do what you need to do, and be back and gone, as opposed to going in and administering it through the tool FortiManager. So use the tools, get the training, incent your team to go and get the training. And I think that will overall, it will create significant value and get you to your ultimate goal of enhancing your security posture as an enterprise or any type of institution.
Yeah, and that's a great point about the training, as well as it being free, is that, you know, they're great fundamentals. I mean, we've got, I think, right around 700,000 people, and our goal is to get to 1 million. So that it does increase, you know, the cybersecurity industry professionals, and gives us more people in the pipeline that are qualified to go and take those jobs that are out there, because there's plenty of them out there. The other thing that Troy Amon, our field CISO, always talks in forums and customers about is where do we find resources? Is partner with a local junior college. You'll have people primed, doing internships and co-ops and following the curriculum that you need to show up and be ready and fully prepared when they show up in your environment. So that's always another good way to go. There's a lot of goodwill and faith. Sometimes it's a junior college, but those are other opportunities to go and train people up and address the resource constraints.
Well, you guys also have a great program for veterans as well. Fortinet, you know, the training, federal training for, oh, sorry, not federal training, the security training for military personnel. That's another, you know, great source of people, people that are coming back. They've done that job either in the military or they're very, very familiar with tactical execution. So that's another program that you guys have that I think is a wonderful program as well.
Good point. Appreciate that. Let's transition over to the best part of the show. And the only reason we really want to do this is let's talk tunes. So normally, you know, every time I let the guests pick the tunes. Rob, you picked Metallica, one of my all-time favorites. I did my independent research. We'll get into it. 10 studio albums, 4 live albums, 12 video albums, 1 cover album, 40 plus years, 125 million albums sold worldwide, 37 singles, 39 videos. My first exposure to Metallica was in high school, and I went to the Black Tour, 1991 at the Rosemont Horizon. In 2018, I went to the World Wired Tour in Charlotte. Shout out to Ross Feldman because we went with the Feldmans that night. They're a huge influence over the entire music industry. If you look at anything that's out there, there's many, many, many bands that are have said Metallica has influenced us from this type of sound or that type of sound or however it is. They've evolved. You talk about evolving with what your firm does. I mean, Fortinet's evolved. You know, our careers have evolved from being, you know, what we were 20 years ago. But why do you love Metallica, Rob?
Man, I tell you, it goes back to my early days as well, Jay. Prior to '91, I'm sad to say, but I started listening to Metallica when I was working out. And man, if you know, I used to listen to the Ride the Lightning album, and you want to sling some iron, put some of that stuff on, and if that doesn't get your adrenaline going, I don't know what will. I coincidentally, I was at Dreamforce out in San Francisco, and Metallica was the act that they had, and basically downtown San Francisco was a Metallica concert. They had it there at the outdoor convention center area, but I was surprised at how technologically advanced they were. Spokespeople for Salesforce, and they use Salesforce in so many ways, from merchandising to fan base tracking, and how they how ingrained they are with technology. I was just impressed by that. But it started way. I don't care about that. Their music is great. They always got bass. They'll kick the heck out of any speakers you got. So that's why I like them.
And that's cool. It was a big workout thing. I mean, like I said, I
Yeah.
went to the concert in '91, but I started listening to them long before that.
Oh yeah.
You know, those are probably the 150 cars you can wreck your 150 songs you can wreck your car to. But what
Yeah. I like that.
what tune? You know, what's the first song that you would pick, Rob, that aligns to resource constraints and how this all ties together?
Oh, so the first one I would pick, I think it's most present today, is "Wherever I May Roam," right? Because that's what's impacting almost every security shop out there. Is the enterprise went from a little box to just right to home offices and Sony PlayStations, and you know, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So "Wherever I May Roam" is definitely comes to mind. I would say "Seek and Destroy" is another one,
So
because
those
that's
two,
what the yeah. Go ahead.
those two I had tied together. Wherever I may roam,
Yeah,
seek and destroy. So yeah, seek and destroy for sure. It's like we got to find the threat actors and take them out.
yeah,
And it's
yeah,
a great song.
yeah. I
Uh,
like it.
I had on mine Unforgiven, because if we don't get proactive about some of this and figure out how we're going to address the resource constraints, whether it's with the firm at MSSP or training people up, you're going to be unforgiven to be behind the curve.
Yeah,
Through the never. Most
yeah,
of the market has been through that. They have not been through that. And a lot of times I think with the firm, the four horsemen, you have to call the four
yeah,
horsemen to come in because
yeah.
they will ride. You have anything else on your list? Anything that they've done as a cover that might,
Not well. I mean, you know, the only real cover that I'm aware of, and I'm a big Bob Seger fan, which is "Turn the Page." But the other song that comes to mind is "Fuel." I actually used to have that as a ringtone because it just hits you so hard right in the teeth from the first lick. But in today's world, you know, "Give me fuel, give me fire, give me that which I desire." That's to me the CISO that's like, you know, give me everything you got because I'm coming with it. So that's one I like.
so the last one I've got is Until It Sleeps. You know, we
Yeah,
want the threat actors until it sleeps. So
yeah.
I think that's appropriate. And I didn't want to have everything off the Black Album on my list of first ones, even though that was the most.
Four Horsemen goes back too. Four Horsemen goes back.
Four Horsemen goes back. I made sure I went through and tried to get a big wide spectrum. But yeah, I mean, it's,
Yeah,
you know, it's going back. Like last week I had Tom and Eric, my peers, on. We talked about Motley Crue. You know, Metallica's Black Album was produced by Bob Rock, who did Dr. Feelgood, which those are two of the most commercially successful albums ever. And always sound good, super influential. Anything else you have on the Metallica front, Rob?
no, man. I mean, look, I've introduced my kids. I have four daughters. You know, when they were in Dallas, the Hardwired tour, I took my daughters to that. you know, they had me on video. They were Snapchatting. Yep, that's my dad. As I was, you know, about to headbutt the guy behind me or something. I don't know what is going on, but we had a good time. They like Metallica, and so I've carried that tradition on down the line. I'm glad to say that.
Yeah, I brought my son with me to that one, so he was he enjoyed it a lot. So
Yeah.
really appreciate everybody taking in the podcast. If you want to get a hold of Robert or I, you know, Jay Mervis at Fortinet.com, Robert at Liquid Networx. We're both on LinkedIn all the time. Robert's got to keep it short out there, so you can't forget his last name. But my next guest will be Corey Wharf, owner and coach at CrossFit Weddington, to talk fitness and what that journey looks like in regards to the care continuum and cybersecurity. But Rob, really appreciate you being on. Love being partners with Liquid Networx, and thank you for all that you and the firm do for us at Fortinet.
Hey, love being partners with Fortinet. You guys keep doing what you're doing, and thanks for having me on, Jay. I had a good time, especially talking about Metallica.
Awesome.